pros that teach you something about your vehicle that you may not have known about. And there's something going on, Ron the Car Guy, that people after your visit today are going to be talking about.
Well, I want to talk to Ron really quickly because something we have talked about, and I just want to reinforce the fact that it works, is we were traveling to Creston, Iowa, southern part of the state, for Mother's Day, and that's when the rain basically hit and just came down in sheets. And it wasn't until we were driving in it for a couple of minutes, I have a photo here, if you want to pop that up, that I realized,
look at that,
we weren't even running our wiper blades. I'm like, maybe we should turn our wiper blades on. We forgot that we didn't even have them on because of the Aquapel. The rain just went right off of the windshield, but it was coming down pretty darn hard.
And when was that applied to her windshield?
Oh gosh, that was probably 3-4 months ago. Yeah. It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Now, as a disclaimer, Aquapel on the windshield is not a replacement for not fixing your windshield wipers.
Jackie.
So if your windshield wipers don't work, just don't put Aquapel on and say, oh, I'm not going to fix them.
He's helped me with that too, but I'm just saying sometimes I forget. It's like, oh, we forgot to turn on our wiper blades. So it does work. Anyway, now another big issue that you're here to talk about
this is amazing when you folks hear about what is going on. I had no clue this was happening.
And this is kind of new in the media buzz. You know, I've heard it locally. I've seen it on some invoices locally. A television station in Columbia, Missouri, a friend of mine has a shop down there, and he sent me a link to it. They did a big story on it last week. And if you want to watch that, you can go to the Westside Auto Pros Facebook page. We've got a link to it up there if you want to watch the actual TV news story. But most cars, or a lot of cars that are on the road today, have what they call a skid plate underneath. And it's
and what is the purpose of this?
Well, it's made to protect the bottom side of the engine. And it's kind of a...
There it is.
Yeah, that's a pretty robust skid plate. Actually looks like something someone would have made, but that's more, you see, the word plate, I don't think represents it well because it's actually a piece of plastic. It's a heavy,
nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays it's heavy plastic, and as you can see on that one, there's probably 8 or 10 different screws that hold it in place. Some of them have 3 or 4. They've got clips, but it bolts up to the bottom side of the car underneath the engine, and that component has to be removed in order to change oil on a vehicle. And that's just part of the oil change procedure. And some cars are more difficult than others to get it off, but none of them take a lot of extra time. Sometimes they're kind of a pain to do because after they've been taken on and off multiple times, the clips or the fasteners that hold them get worn, and maybe they need to be replaced and stuff. That's a picture of a skid plate that we've got off a vehicle on the floor in our shop, but it's just a molded piece of plastic.
And it's to keep debris and other things from flying up into your engine compartment.
Snow and ice getting up there in the wintertime, because cars are aerodynamically designed and they sit low to the ground. But what I want to talk about, and what they talked about are talking about in the media, and people are talking about, some places that change oil on cars are charging extra to remove the skid plate.
How are you supposed to change your oil if you don't take the skid plate off?
I mean, this isn't anything new. This has been going on for years.
Well, the skid plates have been there for years, but the fee to remove it is something that's come about, in the last year or so.
They charge extra if the oil's dirty then?
Well, I don't know, Jason, but I mean, they're charging $10 to $15 to remove this component. And you know, it does take additional time, but it doesn't take 10 minutes or 15 minutes to remove it and put it back on. It's part of the oil change procedure, and people don't know that. You know, some of the places just say, well, your car is a skid plate. There's an additional fee to remove that, and so I guess what I want to make people aware of is your car may have a skid plate, and it may take some additional time to remove it, but not every place charges extra for that. I mean, it's part of, like you said, do they charge extra if the oil's dirty? You know,
you see some of these places that have the real inexpensive oil changes, and then you get your bill and it doesn't jive.
Exactly.
That could be the reason.
If someone advertises a $40 oil change and you're going to get your oil changed, and when you get ready to leave, it's $55 plus tax, and there's a line item on there of skid plate removal. You know, you should be told that up front if they're going to charge extra. And I think.
Now, can you argue that or not?
Well, the fee needs to be disclosed up front. You know, I mean, you know, you don't go to a restaurant and order a $10 burger, and when it comes, it's $20 because you got fries and they didn't tell you. I mean. But I think part of the reason too is you know, maybe their profit margins aren't in line with where they need to be, and you know, they're trying to come up with some extra stuff. I remember, and this dates me, but it goes back into the 80s when front-wheel drive cars first came out. to service a transmission, to change the fluid in the filter on it. A lot of places charged an extra $10 or $15 because the car was front-wheel drive.
Oh.
And they were actually easier to service because you didn't have to deal with the cross member and stuff underneath there. It took, at least me as a technician, it took less time. So just be aware that cars do have this, I call it a plastic shield instead of a skid plate, but cars do have that underneath there. Some places charge extra. I've seen, in the local area, I've seen up to a $10 fee on invoices. Some places charge extra, remove it, some don't. So just ask.
Now you mentioned you can watch the video clip of the TV station from Missouri that did this story last week. It's on Ron's Facebook page. We suggest checking that out because he's talking about how long it takes to take the skid plate off. And he says, well, it doesn't take 10 minutes, it doesn't take 5 minutes. In the case of this story, it took less than 20 seconds.
It was on a Mazda. Yeah,
Oh, really?
It took less than a half a minute. There was 4 screws and it was just down. So.
And they probably have an electric.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, electric impact. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not that big of a deal. But we just want people to be aware of it. And another thing to just keep in mind and be aware of is, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a couple of weeks on the show. But make sure the right oil is being put into your vehicle. I mean that's really getting to be a problem.
Why so?
Well, a lot of manufacturers are recommending a synthetic oil, and places aren't utilizing synthetic oil.
Full synthetic or synthetic blend?
Full synthetic.
Okay.
And it develops sludge and it creates engine problems down the road. And the car manufacturers are getting stuck with warranty claims. Because if you look at an invoice for your oil change, a lot of times they're pretty generic. It'll say like 5 quarts of 5W30 oil, but it doesn't tell you what brand of oil. It doesn't tell you if it's synthetic blend, conventional. And through the ASA, the Automotive Service Association that I belong to, we've actually got a presentation for shop owners next week because there's new federal law, there's new labeling requirements that have to be on the customer's invoice. Line iteming exactly what was done to that car and exactly what was put into it for oil. And this is brought on by the auto manufacturers because they're getting, people say, well, I've changed my oil every 5,000 miles.
Right.
Well, did you put the right stuff in? They're getting hung with warranty claims. And so that's a big change coming out. And I went online and I read the requirements that need to be on an invoice. And when I got done reading them, I still didn't know what the heck they were talking about, because it's mumble jumble. So, as ASA, we're actually bringing an expert to Des Moines, and he's going to do a presentation for repair shops so we all know what needs to be on there.
Okay.
Well, it's one of those things for someone who just does basic maintenance when she's supposed to. Oil change is supposed to be the easiest thing. You go in, you drop your car off, and do your just basic maintenance. The fact that we need to pay more attention to just that most basic thing is an eye-opening idea.
Exactly, it is because what's going to happen is after this law is in effect, let's say that you have your oil changed and it's done at a place that doesn't follow the labeling requirements, and all of a sudden you have a warranty issue on your engine, and you go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, this engine failed, I got a warranty problem. They say, well, let me see your oil change receipts, and you get them out, and they can't tell what was put in it. There's going to be a big red denied stamp on your warranty claim, and then you're going to have the battle of going back to whoever changed it, and who knows if they have the resources or the means of taking care of it. I mean, it's just
a headache waiting to happen.
Yeah, and it's a law. I mean, it's a new law, and you have to comply with it.
Okay.
And yet I've talked to dozens of shop owners that don't even know about it.
Yeah, well, you got to get them up to speed. That's the whole
But go to our Westside Auto Pros Facebook page if you want to watch that video and form your own opinion about the skid plate.
There you go. If any other questions, can they get a hold of you too?
Yeah, you can go to askronthecarguy.com, submit a question through our blog, or contact me at westsideautopros.com.
All right, great job as always. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, 6 minutes before 7 o'clock. We'll be right back.